Well, good morning, everybody. Happy August 19th. It's Sunday. Time for another recovery video, a weekly recovery video. What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lefty, and today we're going to talk about something that I think almost everybody will eventually run into when they start seriously trying to start over or change their life, and that's the people you start to keep around. So recovery changes who you will keep around, okay? One of the many things that I've learned in recovery is that when you change, you specifically, your relationships start to change too. And that is a good thing. That's a good change. Sometimes it can be painful, it can be confusing, and it can get pretty lonely at times, right? Because when you decide that drugs and alcohol aren't going to be a part of your life anymore, you're not just giving up the substance. A lot of times you're giving up the whole lifestyle, right? You're walking away from an entire lifestyle that you've been used to for a long time. And unfortunately, some of the people connected to that lifestyle might not fit into that life that you're trying to build. So I'm going to touch on about 5 or 6 different topics that will help us. And we're going to start with, when you get sober, you start seeing things really differently, okay? When we're actively using, you don't always recognize how unhealthy some of our relationships can be, and how unhealthy they really are. Because everybody around you might be doing some of the same things that you are, right? You're drinking together, you're getting high together, you're partying together, you're looking for drugs together, you're seeking together, you're talking about getting drugs, you're talking about what happened last night at the bar or at the trap house, you're recovering from what happened last night at the bar or the trap house. And because everybody around you is participating in that, it starts to feel normal, right? But it's not. But then when you get sober and suddenly you're looking at everything from a completely different perspective and outlook, one question I think is probably worth asking ourselves, or somebody who's still in that position, is, if drugs and alcohol completely disappeared from this relationship with this person, would we still be friends? And that's a tough question, because sometimes the answer is going to be, honestly, yes. And there are absolutely friendships that will survive into recovery. But sometimes you'll realize that the substance wasn't just something you did together, it was the main thing, right? It was the glue holding that relationship together. And once that drug is gone, once the alcohol is gone, there really isn't much left to that. And one of the other things I wanted to talk about early on in this video is, you don't have to hate somebody to outgrow them, right? That's so true. And I think I wrote that in all caps because that's something I think people, and even myself, get confused about. Walking away from somebody doesn't automatically mean that you're better than them. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily a terrible person. Doesn't mean that they're a terrible person, right? It doesn't mean that you have to hate them. Sometimes you're simply trying to go somewhere that they're not ready to go yet. And maybe they're still drinking every weekend. Maybe they're still getting high. Maybe they're still living in that chaos. Maybe they're still doing the exact same things that you were doing when your life was falling apart. And you notice that, right? And now you're trying to build something different, and you still care about that person. You still can have hope that eventually they'll find recovery themselves. And you want good things for them, right? And yourself, but you don't have to destroy yourself trying to maintain a relationship or a friendship with them. Because there's a huge difference between caring about somebody and putting yourself back into an environment that threatens everything that you're working towards. So you have to start to pay attention to how people are going to respond to your recovery. And this will tell you a lot about them. Tell people, I don't drink anymore. I don't get high anymore. I'm not going there anymore. I'm heading home. I can't be around that. I'm trying to change my life. Then pay attention to what happens. Healthy people will usually respect that. Right? They might not completely understand what you're going through, but they'll respect it. But some people who keeps trying to get you to drink, that's somebody who offers you drugs after you told them you're sober, or that's somebody who constantly makes fun of your recovery, or somebody who says, come on, it isn't going to hurt you, it isn't going to kill you, just take one. That's somebody you need to be very careful around. Because someone doesn't have to intentionally sabotage your recovery to be dangerous to it. Sometimes their lifestyle is enough. And then oftentimes will come a sense of loneliness. Loneliness is a tough emotion. It's a tough feeling. And I think this is the one of the parts of recovery that I don't even really talk about a whole lot. Because let's just say you actually do everything that people tell you to do. You stop using, you stop going to the places where you used to use, you stop hanging around people you used to use with, you stop answering certain phone calls, you stay away from the bars, you stay away from the parties. Well, great. Good job. Now it's Friday night, you're sitting at home, and suddenly you realize, well, I don't know what the heck to do with myself. I'm lonely. Everybody I used to hang around with is somewhere that I shouldn't be, right? And the phone isn't ringing anymore. You're not getting texts. You're not getting calls. You even start wondering if your old life is more exciting than your new one. And that's a dangerous moment. It's a pivotal moment too, because loneliness can make the past look a lot better than it actually was. You start remembering the laughs, the parties, the good nights, the good times. Your brain might even leave out, the withdrawal part of it, the next day, the hangover, the arguments, the money you wasted, the people you hurt, the mornings you woke up feeling terrible with a hangover, right? The anxiety, the consequences, the shame. The times you promised yourself that you'd stop and then you did it again. Don't let loneliness rewrite the history of your addiction. Don't negotiate with that. We know where it took us and we know where we're going, right? The empty space doesn't mean that recovery isn't working. This is important because a lot of us will get lonely and we'll be empty inside. We'll have that empty space with what to do with ourselves. So when you remove something that has consumed such a huge part of our lives, there's going to be an empty space. That's normal. The problem is that we sometimes interpret that emptiness as something being wrong. There's something wrong with that. Nothing is necessarily wrong. You just haven't filled that space with your new life yet. And that's where recovery pops in. And that's where recovery becomes more than simply not using. It becomes something that you have to kind of figure out. What do I enjoy? What kind of person do I want to be? What do I want my weekends to look like? What are the hobbies that I forgot about, right? I fell into motorcycling and rock hounding when I got sober. And what are things that I've always wanted to try to do? What kind of people do I actually want to surround myself with? And that's, my friends, where the rebuilding starts to happen. Don't confuse familiar with healthy. This is another big lesson for us, for me in particular. Just because something feels familiar, it doesn't mean that it's good for you. Chaos can also become familiar. Drama and trauma can be familiar. Being broke can become familiar. Being around intoxicated people can become familiar. Even constantly having problems, issues, can become familiar. And when you've lived that way for long enough, or a long time like I have, peace can actually feel sort of strange. Healthy relationships might even seem boring at first because there's no drama. Nobody's calling you at 2 a.m. with some crazy situation. Nobody's asking you for money. Nobody's trying to find drugs with you. Nobody's starting fights. Nobody's dragging you into something that you didn't really want to be involved with. And at first you might think, man, my life is boring. It got boring. But maybe you're not bored. Maybe you're finally experiencing peace. And you haven't really learned how to appreciate that peace yet. So that's when we have to stop making our recovery harder than it needs to be. Your environment matters. I don't care how motivated somebody is. If you're constantly surrounding yourself with drugs, alcohol, parties, people encouraging your old behavior, and you're making recovery unnecessarily difficult by way of all that. You don't get extra credit for putting yourself in risky situations, okay? You don't have to prove how strong you are. If you know a certain place is going to trigger you, don't go there. If you know somebody is going to pressure you, don't hang around them. If you know having alcohol in your house or in your vicinity is going to become a problem, don't do it. Don't keep it there. Make a choice. That's not a weakness. That's knowing yourself well enough to protect what you're building. It's not saying you're weak. Okay, it's not saying that you're going to use. It's not saying, but just why do that? Why set yourself up, especially in early recovery? Now, you have to build something in order to have something, okay? Here's what I think people get stuck on sometimes, and I got stuck on it as well, is that we get really good at talking about what we need to stop doing. Stop drinking, stop using, stop going to the bar, stop hanging around certain people. Okay, that's cool, but what are you going to start doing? Because you need something to move toward, right? You need to have a goal. Start going to the gym, start going fishing, hiking, rock hounding, get a motorcycle, go outside, work on something, learn something, volunteer somewhere, reconnect with certain family members, join a recovery community. I've done all those things in my recovery, and all of them have proved very fruitful. And I got involved with other people who share my same hobbies and habits. And I like that, right? Pick up something that you enjoyed before your addiction took over. Remember what you used to be. Try something completely new. You don't need 50 new friends. You don't need to suddenly become the most important or social person in the world. You might just need 2 or 3 solid people who genuinely want to see you succeed. And I found that in my life. Your definition of a friend will start to change. Okay, as you accumulate time and in recovery, and as recovery continues, something else will happen. You start to look for different qualities in people. Instead of who's fun to party with, you start asking who keeps their word, who respects my boundaries, who actually wants to see me succeed, who can I talk to when I'm struggling, who's my 2 a.m. person, right? Who tells the truth, who doesn't need me to destroy myself for us to have something in common, who brings something positive in my life. And probably the most important thing is, who am I when I'm around this person? Because that's a big one. Do I like the version of myself that comes out when I'm around them? Or do I slowly start becoming the person I'm trying to leave behind? Because some people will always see the old you, and that is frustrating. You can change your entire life, and there will still be people who only remember who you used to be. They'll remind you of this often. They'll remind you of the things you did. They'll remind you of the mistakes you made, and they might even expect you to relapse. They might not believe that you've changed yet. But here's something that I've learned, is that you don't have to spend the rest of your life trying to convince anybody. Let your actions speak for yourself. Let's stay sober. Let's keep showing up. Let's handle our responsibilities. Let's treat people better. Do what you're going to say, what you're going to do, and do what you say. Mean what you say, and say what you mean. Keep moving forward. Eventually, your life starts to tell the story for you. Okay, these relationships that we build around who we're becoming, that's where things start to get really good. Eventually, you're going to start meeting people who don't know the old version of you. And they know you because of who you are today. They may know you from work, from recovery, from riding motorcycles, from the gym, from a hobby. Maybe they're people that you reconnected with after years apart. And suddenly your relationships aren't based around getting drunk or high anymore. And they don't know you as that. They're based around actual interests, conversations, trust, respect, shared experiences, helping each other out. Actually being there for somebody, right? That's a completely different type of relationship. So take a look at your recovery circle of people. And here's what I want you to do after this video. Think about 5 people that you communicate with or spend the most time around, and ask yourself this question. Do these people support the person I'm trying to become? Or do they keep me connected to the person I'm trying to leave behind? Because you don't have to cut everybody out of your life today. You don't have to hate anybody. You don't have to think that you're better than anybody. But if you're serious about recovery, you have to be serious about protecting it. Because recovery changes more than what you put into your body. It changes where you go. It changes what you do. It changes what you tolerate. It changes your priorities. And eventually, recovery changes who you keep around, right? Some relationships are going to survive that change. Some relationships might even become stronger. Some people might disappear from your life. And that's going to hurt, my friends. Sometimes losing your connection to the old lifestyle is exactly what gives you room to build something better, something new. So if you're sitting there in early recovery right now and you're feeling lonely because you're not around the same old people anymore, don't automatically assume you're doing something wrong. You might actually be moving in the right direction. You just don't know it yet. So give yourself time to build that new life. Give yourself time to meet new people. Most importantly, don't go running back to the same thing that was destroying you just because it's familiar or you're used to it. Keep moving forward, protect your recovery, and become something or somebody that you're proud of. And if you're working recovery like right now and you want to learn more about these topics, stick around, subscribe. We've got a lot of conversation to talk about here on Second Chance Recovery. And if you're sitting there thinking about getting sober, but you just haven't started yet, maybe today is the day you start giving yourself that second chance. And that's the whole idea of this channel. And so moving forward, these conversations that we have can be difficult. They can be triggering. But if you're willing to put in the work one day at a time, I think you guys are going to find success, just as I have in recovery, every day, one day at a time. Ups, downs, wins, losses, slips, trips. We're going to get through this together. I appreciate you guys being my support system. And we'll see you on the next one. Lefty, out.